Hello, so I'm going to take a look back at one of my favourite shooters. Now this game comes from 2007, but you wouldn't know it from looking at it. When this game arrived on the scene, it stunned everybody. It was just graphically superior to anything that had ever been released. And that game is Crysis. Now Crysis was a bit of a bolt from the blue. Crytek had done the first Far Cry game on the CryEngine 1, and that was okay. Then they disappeared for a few years, and they came back with Crysis on the CryEngine 2. And it was stunning. Nobody had seen graphics like it. Now what you've seen in the background is Crysis, completely standard, running on very high graphics. And my PC is still not hitting 120 frames per second. It's getting between about 90 and 110 on a 9-year-old game. Now that's because Crysis was the first game to run DirectX 10, and when it came out in 2007, very few PCs would run it on high, let alone very high settings. There was a common phrase, yeah, but can it run Crysis? Whenever anybody bragged about their PC, that was the phrase you came out with, because virtually nothing could. Now you'd think that's not a very good game, but it was. What had happened is that Crytek had been developing the game on new hardware. So they'd got the 8000 series Nvidia graphics cards, they got quad-core processors, and that's what they were developing on. They'd also got the new version of DirectX, which was DirectX 10, and so they went ahead, developed a game on all this new tech. Unfortunately, the new tech didn't arrive for about a year after the game was released, so everybody struggled. And Crysis is one of the reasons why everybody started overclocking, because could you run Crysis? If you could overclock it, you probably could. Me, I was running a Intel Core Duo and an Nvidia 79000 graphics card, I think, and I could just about run it on medium. But I never got the kudos of being able to run it on high because I just didn't have that much money. Now it may have looked stunning, but was the game any good? Well yeah, Crysis was a very good game. At the start of the game, all you know is you're going to parachute onto an island that's got North Korean soldiers on it, and you're going to try and rescue a bunch of archaeologists that are stranded there. And so when you first play Crysis, you think, well, that's a pretty standard plot. You're a soldier, you've got this really fancy nano suit that makes you super strong or super fast or gives you tough armour or makes you stealthy, and all you've got to do is go in and kill a bunch of soldiers. But then the plot just keeps building and building, and it rolls on and it gets more involved and more in depth, and you become more out of your depth, and you discover that what the archaeologists found wasn't archaeology, it was a fossil. But it's a carbon-based fossil, and it might still be alive. And that's where I'll stop with the plot so I don't give too much of it away. But the way it actually builds the plot and progresses is really clever. There's lots of little clues and lots of little events that make you wonder what's going on. So Crysis has great graphics and a good plot, and it's also got good mechanics to back it up. As a shooter, it's very solid. Now it does have a few minor flaws. Some of the guns, their mechanics and the way they react and recoil doesn't feel quite right. And at times you'll move up to a gap in the cover and try and shoot through it, but you can't, because even though it's see-through, it's not modelled as a gap, it's still part of a solid piece of cover. They're the game's little quirks, and once you're used to them, it's actually fine. The guns in the game are fully customisable, you can put gadgets on them and sights on them. So the first time you pick up a gun with a red dot scope, you can then put that red dot scope on any further guns you pick up. That does mean you can do things like putting a sniper scope onto a shotgun, but if you want to do that, the game will let you. The biggest mechanic that differentiates this from a lot of other shooters is the nano suit that your character wears. So this nano suit builds up energy over time, and you can use that energy in lots of different ways. So you can increase your armour value. As you take damage, the energy in the suit's used up until you're basically back to normal again. Or you can go stealthy. For a short period of time you can move around. The faster you move, the faster it uses up the energy in the suit. Slower you move, the more time you can spend actually stealthed. You can go super strong, which lets you jump high, it lets you throw people or throw objects around the map. You can go super fast, so basically that just lets you sprint really fast across the map, but only for a short time. You can change the suit mode at any time you want just by pressing the middle mouse button. That brings up a radio wheel and you just select which mode you want the suit to be in. And the suit allows you to play the game in several ways. You can go for armour and basically just blast your way through the game. You can try and stealth it, or you can hand to hand the entire game. Put the suit into strength mode and just punch and throw people around the area. Personally, I use stealth to get up to where I want to have a fight, then I switch to armour and just blast away and kill everything in the area. That's the kind of way I like to play Crysis, because that's the way you can play it. But you can just stealth it, go silent and snipe people off hilltops if you want. And although the game gives you objectives to get to, it doesn't tell you how to get to them. Sometimes it suggests you take a vehicle or a boat, but if you want, you can walk or run and take any pathway you want to get to your objective. And it's that freedom to pick your own routes and the freedom to pick your playstyle, combined with great graphics and really good plot, that makes Crysis such a winner as a first-person shooter. Now, the reason it's not higher in my list of favourites is the fact that Crysis 2 and Crysis 3 are still a bit of a pig to run. I can't get Crysis 2 to run stably on any PC I've ever owned. Crysis 3 runs fine on my PC at the moment, Crysis 2 still doesn't. But Crysis 1 is an incredibly good game, and therefore it's one of my favourites.